Hello folks, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk a little bit about piercing aftercare, but I'd like to get a little vulnerable and a little honest about struggling with being consistent with piercing aftercare. If you're not familiar with how to take care of your piercings, I have a bunch of blog posts, a whole series actually about aftercare on my website that goes in depth. But if I could sum up the care and cleaning for the vast majority of piercings, it's cleaning them a couple times a day with saline wound wash and just kind of cleaning away any crust or debris that's built up around the piercing, in just the simplest terms. And this seems like a relatively easy to do. You just need to spend a few minutes every day making sure your piercing is clean while it's healing. Sure, some piercings can take 6 to 9 months, sometimes even a year or two to fully heal, but it's just a few minutes every day. We spend more time brushing our teeth, washing our face, showering, feeding ourselves. It's not really that much to ask to just kind of keep our piercings clean every day. But something that I know I personally struggle with a lot, and I know a lot of other folks out there do, is inconsistency with piercing aftercare. And what I mean by that is that I'm not a very good client when it comes to taking care of my piercings. I want to be a good client, I mean well, but I just struggle with consistency and with developing that habit when it comes to healing piercings. How it goes for me typically when I'm healing a piercing is I'll be really good with my aftercare for like the first month or two, maybe even 3. I'll keep, my saline right in my bathroom. I'll see it every morning. I'll clean down my piercings. I'll have everything I need. I'll be really responsible with it. But as time goes on into the healing process, I get busy. Something comes up at work. I'm having a hard time in my personal life. Like, I struggle with mental health stuff, so I go through a bout where I'm feeling really depressed or really anxious, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe I'm really happy and doing really good, but I'm just really busy. I'm going to movies with my friends and concerts and events, and I'm traveling. Whatever the case may be, I end up getting a little inconsistent with my piercing aftercare. I forget to clean it for a couple of days, sometimes more than a couple of days. And when I realize it always seems to be when I'm out and about or I'm doing something and I know better and I know I shouldn't do it, but I end up just kind of picking at the crust that's there, and then my piercing gets all grumpy, and then I feel bad that it's grumpy, and it almost makes me feel guilty about cleaning, and so then I don't. And it takes me sometimes a couple of weeks to get back into the swing of cleaning and caring for my piercing regularly. And at that point, I've gotten an irritation bump or I'm having issues with it. And now I feel really ashamed and embarrassed. And I've been going through this cycle with my piercings since I was a client. And it's somehow not gotten any better, even though I'm now a professional piercer. I do this full time. I don't really have any excuse. I'm in a studio all day long with all of the things that I need to clean my piercings. I go home and I have all of the things I need to clean my piercings. But whatever the case may be, I just really struggle with consistency with my aftercare. And I wanted to make this video to tell you that that's okay. It's okay. It's not the end of the world, really. Now, is it the best thing for your piercing? No, because when you're inconsistent with aftercare, it absolutely can cause piercings to have irritation bumps and issues, and sometimes they can overswell, they can get too built up with crust or debris. It's definitely not a good thing for your piercing, but it's also not the end of the world. And I think in the past, when I've struggled with inconsistency with cleaning, when I realized that I've been not on top of it for a couple of days or weeks, especially if I realized I wasn't on top of it and my piercing was a little irritated, it kind of compounded, and I felt so guilty and ashamed that it almost made it harder for me to start being consistent with cleaning again. And you'd think it'd be the opposite. Like, I realized I wasn't cleaning it. I realized the piercing was having issues, and that's like a kick in the butt to be like, oh, like I gotta get back on it. But it wasn't. It honestly just made me feel shameful, and I wanted to ignore that I had let my piercing get bad or not confront the fact that I wasn't keeping up with this habit that I knew better about. And the one thing, the biggest thing in my experience that changed that was no longer belittling myself or talking down on myself when this happened. Because I used to do this and I would be like, wow, you suck as a client. How could you forget to clean your piercing? Like, this is unacceptable. When I worked in the industry, I was like, wow, what are your clients going to think? They're going to see you with an irritation bump on your piercing. They're going to think you don't know what you're doing. You're a bad piercer. You don't know how to heal piercings. And all of this negative self-talk just made me feel terrible about myself and made me even less motivated to get back into doing the care and the cleaning that I needed to. And something that struck me was actually some folks talking about eating disorder recovery and how oftentimes when we binge or when we eat a lot of food, we have a lot of negative self-talk towards ourselves over it, and this can further the cycle of disordered eating. And someone I was talking with said, think about it like you're talking to a friend. You would never say the things to your friend that you say to yourself about food. And I was like, a light bulb went off in my brain. And I was like, what would I say to a client that's struggling with consistent cleaning? I would tell them that it's okay. I would tell them that life gets busy, things happen. Remembering to clean your helix piercing every day in the grand scheme of things is not more important than going out and living life with your friends and going camping and to concerts and traveling. It's not more important than taking care of yourself if you're grieving or when you need to study for finals or something's going wrong at school or at work. Like, there is so much in your life that ultimately ends up being more important than the 2 minutes a day that you were going to spend cleaning your piercing. And if you've forgotten to for a little bit, it's not the end of the world. You just get back on track, get back to taking care of it, and your piercing will recover. Human bodies are hardy. It's not the ideal situation, but it's not terrible. And when I started showing myself compassion for having these difficulties healing, and instead of sitting there and beating myself up and telling myself that I was bad, that I had failed, I started trying to say, okay, we were busy doing stuff. We had other things come up. It's okay. It's not a big deal. Our body understands. Our body is going to cover for us. It just needs us to help it get back on track. And I started viewing taking care of my piercing again after that, not as a chore or this task that I had to do that I fucked up, but as an act of self-care and love to say, okay, I needed to focus on what I was dealing with in my life. I needed to study for finals. I was on the road and traveling and busy living and didn't have the time to clean my piercing. But now I need to take care of my body and take care of my piercing and be like, I'm so sorry I forgot about you for a few days, but I'm here now and I'm gonna show how much I love and care about this piercing and how excited I am for it by just getting back on track and taking care of it. And being compassionate with myself in those situations really truly helped me just kind of get back into the habit and into the routine of taking care of it without a whole bunch of guilt and without a whole bunch of negativity. As a professional, it's still important for me to acknowledge that if you do neglect taking care of your piercing, it absolutely can cause issues and irritations. Some of the most common things that I see are crust and debris getting built up on the jewelry. This can cause the piercing to embed. It can cause like a wetness or a moisture irritation to build up underneath that crust or debris, or it can cause like a full-blown irritation bump to happen. So it's definitely not ideal to forget to clean your piercing for a length of time. But the good news is if you catch it early and you get back into the routine of cleaning, if you don't beat yourself up like I used to and then just continue to not clean, your piercing will recover. The body will heal. Our bodies are pretty amazing and stronger and hardier than we often give them credit for. And reminding myself that as long as I start cleaning again, as soon as I realize or as soon as I figure it out, it's just getting me back on track sooner to get my piercing healthy again. Now, if you've not cleaned for a while and your piercing is looking pretty rough, it's a good idea to get back in touch with your piercer, shoot them a message on Instagram or an email, or go in person for a checkup. They can take a look and make sure that we don't need to tweak any sizing, that everything's doing good, but they also might be able to recommend some tricks for aftercare that make cleaning a little bit easier and more accessible for you. For example, I like to keep my saline spray right next to my toothbrush because I know I'm going to brush my teeth every day. I see my saline right there, and that reminds me, hey, I gotta clean my piercing. Sometimes I'll put a little post-it note like inside my fridge, so every time I'm open it, it's like, hey, clean your damn piercing, and I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta clean my piercing. And sometimes when I'm busy or I'm traveling, I'll just try and stack it with other chores or other things that I need to do. I'll leave my saline in the shower and clean my ear while I'm showering or washing my face, or I'll keep a little to-go kit in my bag with some saline wipes. That way if I remember while I'm out and about, I can just excuse myself to the bathroom and clean it really quick no matter where I am. There's all sorts of things that we can suggest to kind of help make cleaning an easier part of your daily life, depending on what of it you're struggling with. But I think for a very long time, we as piercers have just kind of pretended that the habit of cleaning a piercing every single day, multiple times a day, over the course of sometimes a year or two, is just this super easy, super simple habit to pick up and get into the hobby of and just stick with. And for a lot of people, it's not. And sure, it's easy enough to keep up with when we're doing well and our life isn't overwhelming, but life isn't going to stay that way forever. We're going to have things happen, life is going to get difficult, and we're not always going to prioritize taking care of our piercings during these times. And rather than sit here and make folks feel guilty or feel bad or just go on and on about all the bad things that can happen to your piercing if you do this, I'd rather foster a space where I'm realistic that people's lives are probably going to take precedent over cleaning their piercing, and where we treat this as not some moral failing that makes you a bad client, but a normal part of being a human that's got a lot of shit going on. I don't want anyone to ever feel like they can't come to me if they're having a problem with their piercing or if they've forgotten to clean it for a little bit because they feel ashamed or embarrassed about it. I want to create a space where people can feel safe coming to me and asking me these questions, where clients can use me as a resource no matter what, and we can work together to make sure their piercing heals under any circumstance. I know I really could have benefited from something like that when I was a client because I felt like such a failure for not being able to stay consistent with my aftercare. And I've spoken to dozens, if not hundreds of clients who've struggled with the very exact same thing. So while it's not the best to be inconsistent with your piercing aftercare, it's also not the end of the world. And my hope in making this video is to destigmatize it a little bit and to let you know that it's okay to sometimes need to prioritize your life over a body piercing, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. As soon as you notice that you haven't been keeping up with cleaning or care, get back to it. Even if you can't stay 100% consistent with it every single day, cleaning it at least when you do have the time or you do remember is worth it. And don't forget, you can make aftercare work for you. Cleaning your piercing does not have to look like a full setup in the bathroom in front of your mirror to get it done. If what cleaning looks like best for you is saline wipes that you keep in your bag and just use to clean your piercing when you remember, I'm totally fine with that. If what it looks like for you is cleaning it overlapping in the shower or letting just the warm water in the shower run over it to clean it sometimes, that works too. Hell, even if it gets really bad and it looks like you needing to come into my studio and have me do a deep cleaning for you and reset your cleaning process and get you back on track, I'm fine with that as well. As long as you're doing something to work towards cleaning and caring for your piercing and tailoring that process to however fits and works into your life, that's all I can ask for. As a piercer, I want to create a safe space and a space where we make piercing aftercare more accessible and more realistic for our clients' lives. If you struggle with being consistent with your aftercare, I want you to know that's okay. Like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I have a whole series of blog posts that explain piercing aftercare, including an in-depth explanation of understanding exactly how piercings heal. And if you're someone who struggles with consistency with aftercare, I'd strongly suggest reading that blog, because understanding in depth how the healing process of a piercing works, I personally find can really make it easier to understand how and why aftercare works and how you can fit aftercare into your daily life in a way that is reasonable for you to keep up with it. I hope this video helps, and I hope if you're someone who's ever felt the way I have and struggled with feeling ashamed or bad about not always being the best client or the best at taking care of your piercings, you know that it is okay, that it is a very normal thing to struggle with, and that even professional piercers sometimes have a hard time staying consistent and keeping up with taking care of our piercings. But most of my stuff has still healed just fine. Again, irritation bumps are not the end of the world, and we don't need to panic when they happen. They're just our body's way of telling us, hey, something's not going exactly right, and reminding us to pay a little bit more attention to what we're doing. To all of my fellow inconsistent, not always the best healers out there, I hope this video helped you feel a little bit better about having those same struggles. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day, and I can't wait to sit down and chat more about piercings again with you soon. Bye!